call the April meeting of the Planning Zoning Board to order. You join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we adopt the agenda, we've got a last-minute ad that we need to change the May meeting. Do I have a motion to add that?
Moved. So moved.
Second? Chris, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we'll add that at the end under new business. Thank you. This is very loud. Has anyone seen the minutes? Do we have any changes or comments? I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Do we have any general public comment that is not related to the item 8 murals? Seeing none, we will move on. So we can go ahead and jump to item 8, the mural presentation.
Good evening. I'm glad to be here with you all. My name is Brittany Johnson, by the way. It's on the agenda, but Brittany Johnson, I'm glad to be here with you all today to present some text amendments, proposed text amendments related to murals. So again, I think it's my first time meeting before you all, but I've been with the town about 1.5 years now, so happy to finally be here.
Thank you. Welcome.
The proposed mural program is one component of the future Morrisville Public Art Program. This presentation will focus on the current and planned steps for the proposed mural program and the text amendments needed to facilitate this program. Just to provide some background, on December 13th, staff did meet with Town Council. We reviewed the program research and findings, as well as process evaluation, and the first 3 locations for installation were chosen. We also discussed theme options. On January 25th, staff did meet with the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Committee. We reviewed the overall program research and findings, as well as the perceived role of the advisory committee by Town Council. On March 14th, staff also met again with Town Council and we reviewed existing UDO language that allows public art, as well as reviewed the RFP process for town-owned properties. A little more about the program. So step 1 was research. First, we researched established mural programs, assessed the approval framework, as well as assessed the strengths and weaknesses of existing programs. Step 2 was planning. We formed a multi-departmental mural advisory committee, which consisted of staff from planning, public works, communication, and parks and recreation. The third step was framework development. We established the framework for the program, identifying mural installation locations, designing the approval process, and identify potential UDO amendments. Our fourth step, which is also our current step, which is the pilot program finalization. We looked at site-specific evaluation, including costs, updated Town Council, requested funds, as well as recommended and are hopefully will be adopting UDO amendments. Step 5, which will be implementation, we will issue the request for proposals and also review those proposals and select muralists. And 6, in the final step, which is the most fun, which is installation. So give a little bit more about a recap of Council's guidance. First, the first three locations were chosen. The first one, well, they're in no particular order, and they may be done concurrently or consecutively. But fire admin, and it was chosen because of its overall location and visibility. Also, the Morrisville Aquatics and Fitness Center, that one was chosen because it's, again, highly visible and visited. And then the Shiloh Park Restroom Building because of its overall history. The approval process, so again, we have that interdepartmental committee, and then we identify the first three locations for installation. We will release a request for proposals. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Committee will review all RFP submittals and then recommend their preferred mural list to Town Council, and then Town Council will select the final design for each location. We will then award the contracts and commission the murals. A little bit more about that RFP process. So it's in the process of being drafted now. We have a few goals identified, which would be to activate and enhance the cultural connectivity and vitality of the town of Morrisville, as well as to honor the town's history, natural beauty, and cultural heritage, as well as to provide opportunities for community engagement. We've also identified some objectives, which would be to create murals that are colorful and inspiring to residents and visitors, as well as to create murals that reflect the characteristics and culture of Morrisville. The selection process will be a two-step process. The first step will be up to 4 muralists or finalists will be selected by the Parks and Recs Cultural Resources Advisory Committee to create site-specific designs, and that'll be based on artists' their accomplishments as well as previous work samples, their technical competency, and of projects of comparable scale that they've done in the past, as well as their experience with collaborating with multiple stakeholders, just having these sorts of things in urban settings as well. We'll be doing reference checks as well as interviews. Also, they need to demonstrate an ability to create artwork that reflects the characteristics of a place, and then also that they have completed projects that are on time and within budget. The second step, the Parks and Recs and Cultural Resources Advisory Committee will then have those finalists will be referred to Town Council, and Council will select those finalists based on the following information, which would be artistic merit of design, appropriateness of design for the location, including scale, content, color, and design in relation to the site, as well as artist qualifications that they have. The concept is reflective of the stated goals and the originality of the design. A little bit additional information for you all as well. As far as for budget and cost analysis, this program is currently unfunded. However, the fiscal year 24 budget request does include the mural program. An artist stipend anywhere from the range of $5,000 to $12,000, which will be predicated on size and location, will be offered as well. And the artist will utilize the stipend to purchase all paint and all necessary required materials. There's also a finalist incentive. With artists, you definitely don't want them to create something site-specific without some sort of compensation that would range anywhere from $250 to $500. We are also looking at working with community-based initiatives like the United Arts Council, which offer monetary support. I do want to note that these are estimates and they're subject to change. As you all know, different locations, you have different surface. They may require cleaning and prepping and priming. As far as mural life expectancy, murals are temporary, but they typically stand from 8 to 12 years, but way over that. That will, with proper installation and maintenance, and some of these standards that we are going to get into in a moment will let you know that we want some that will certainly have a longer longevity. As well as the RFP process, the RFP will also define artists' long-term responsibilities. So now we're getting into those proposed UDL amendments. The first would be to...
I'm sorry, before we jump to that, can you just back up for a second?
Yes.
So just to understand, so on the long-term responsibilities, who is responsible for the maintenance of these things over time?
Yeah, so the RFP will include that information. Typically, the language will say that an artist that creates the mural will be responsible for any sort of upkeep anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And then after that, the town can and get another artist that can make those sort of changes and updates over time.
Okay.
Okay, so the first proposed amendment would be to table 4.3.4, which is the accessory use table. It would allow murals to be added as an accessory use. Originally, staff recommended that murals should be limited to town-owned properties and planned developments like Park West Village and Town Center in the TLD district. But per council's direction, they would certainly like murals to be permitted in the non-residential zoning districts, as well as the parks, open space, and green space conservation district, which a lot of the parks are located in that district. Mural installation on private property would take a staff review. And then as well, we are going to have some use-specific standards, which we'll go on to now. So this would amend section 4.3.5B18, and those proposed use-specific standards would first be mural sizing allotment. So one, murals may cover up to 100% of one exterior side or rear facade of a structure, or two, murals may cover 50% of two side or rear exterior facade walls on a structure, and three, notwithstanding subsections 1 and 2 above, structures owned by the town of Morrisville may cover up to 100% of two exterior facade walls, and that can be front, side, or rear. B, murals shall be maintained in good repair, free from peeling paint or damage due to age, weathering, vandalism, or the like. Failure to maintain a mural in good repair may result in enforcement action by the town, including recovering those fees related to enforcement. C, anti-graffiti coating is required, and D, UV ray resistant paint is also required. And again, those things help with longevity.
May I ask a question on
Yes.
that side? My question is kind of into what Tim had said as well. Normally on ability to maintain it, you would see something like a painter is required to review it every 6 months and document wear and corrective actions to the city, or not starting with the first 90 days and then maybe every 6 months, and then for so long, and then once a year, and then they need to incur all of those costs. So when it says maintain, that's what they consider average wear may or may not be what the city is looking for. So if this is going to be on a brand new fitness center, my idea of wear and tear is going to be different than somebody else's. So that should probably be in the standard. I don't know if that's too much, but that's what I would look for, that it's that person understands they're responsible for buying the paint, fixing it, the scaffolding, and anything else. They're responsible to identify it and fix it.
Yeah, the RFP document will definitely outline all of the artist's responsibilities, and that's something that we're currently in the process of reviewing and establishing at this point.
And I would say the same for the anti-graffiti coating. If somebody doesn't have a lot of experience with that, if the city has a specific brand they're recommending, they should just say, you need to do this, and then if the paint, their painting fails underneath that, that's their problem because you specified it. Just, sorry, that's a little
Oh, yeah,
detailed.
definitely. Yeah, we're definitely looking into all of that. Also, we've been, the mural committee has been reaching out to United Arts. You know, they are specialists. You never want to reinvent the wheel. You want to consult those people that do this on a day-to-day basis. And so a lot of that language will be incorporated to make sure that we don't have issues with that moving forward.
Since we're kind of at a stopping point, so it's sort of further expanding. I mean, and I do like the fact that it's going to be open to private buildings, but we almost have two sort of things going. We've got the town doing a public art, right? So there's a certain responsibility that the artist has with us. They're signing this RFP, whatever. There's a contract essentially. Private mural, we're not going to have that sort of same leverage. So I guess, is that just going to be enforced through the typical town like zoning or code enforcement people, or whose objective opinion, I guess, will be applied? And I don't feel like we have as much leverage in that case on that private owner. I mean, maybe that's anticipated as part of what would happen with that. It just feels like there's a sort of almost two separate things that could happen.
Yeah, so again, that will be done through code enforcement. And that's why the standard that you have to keep it in good repair, and it says no vandalism and free from peeling and paint, paint and weathering and things of that nature. So that would be our recourse. Okay. I'll go on here. So the next proposed amendment would be to table 5.9.4B2, and that would be the non-residential group living and mixed-use exterior facade materials table. Right now, the UDO prohibits painting on brick, stone, and rock, as well as CMU and tile. This proposed amendment would just be to allow painting on those materials in cases for murals.
Can I ask one more
Mhm.
question? What happens when the mural wears? So these exact materials that you described are usually selected because there is zero maintenance on it. So you have a brick wall, you don't have to include in your annual budget every 10 years you're going to do something to it. So you decide that you're going to paint this brick wall or this cement wall. 8 years from now, it wore out and the city decides this doesn't work, so then you have to somehow resurface that, or is this going to be perpetual painting? So that needs to be built in then into all the operating budgets of how do we then maintain the life of something that should have lasted for 50 years. All of a sudden, every 8 years, you're in a cycle of doing something with a wall that you didn't plan to. I mean, you can use cheaper materials then if we're just going to use them as an art surface when they're designed versus functionality.
I think that goes into those specified materials that we're asking for, that UV resistant paint, the anti-graffiti coating, those things really contribute to longevity. As far as for maintenance, those things will be, again, addressed within the RFP on, when artists would be responsible, due to weathering and those types of things. Again, that document hasn't been finalized yet, and so I'm glad that you all are bringing up these issues. Again, we are looking at them, and so it will just make us hone in even that much more on that information.
Just to follow up, just to clarify, for example, the restroom is brick. It might have been that way for the next 100 years and looked exactly the same. Once you paint it, you're doing something to it. So whether the projects continue or they stop after these 8 years, which they may have maintained it and it looks fine, you now have done something to the surface of these buildings that then last forever. So I guess that's my question. You're specifying buildings that don't require maintenance. That's why you put brick on it.
Well, I think that with brick, and a part of the mural installation is to prime and prep these locations. So a material that is long lasting, you're doing something to it to also make the art that will be installed long lasting as well. As far as upkeep, again, that's something that we will be investigating moving forward. Again, it is 8 to 12 years because murals are temporary, but again, with the proper installation and maintenance, they last a lot longer. I think that we all have seen murals that have been there for years. So again, we'll be looking at making sure that we have those contingencies built in.
Thank you.
Okay, and so the last proposed amendment would be to section 11.5, and that would be the terms and uses defined. We would define the term mural, and that would be an original, one-of-a-kind design or representation which does not contain promotional or commercial advertising painted or drawn on an exterior wall or ceiling. Murals shall not contain words in any language, symbols, or representations that are offensive, obscene, offensive, or of a political nature or derogatory. Again, this is the kind of end to my presentation here, but I'm open for any questions and comments that you all may have. Yes.
Is the RFP going to be open to anyone, or are we limiting it to local artists?
So it will be limited to local artists for now, at least, because certain grants and things that we're looking into specify they have to be North Carolina local artists. And so we certainly don't want to get ourselves out of that allotment, at least initially.
Just a question. So I'm kind of confused as why we're going out with an RFP if there's no funding for the project.
So we have requested funds in this fiscal year. And so, we have presented to council. We do have support for that. I'm hoping that, we will also have the funds as well.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly want to move forward and have everything in place so that when those funds do come available, we're ready.
Okay. And then the 3 projects that were in the front of that, those all are in materials that would require this change. I guess the question is, did we consider other venues for this pilot that won't require this adjustment?
Well, those locations were chosen by town council. They were chosen again for their visibility. They were chosen from a list of all town-owned properties, and those were the three that were selected. Again, the painting would be only in cases of murals, and again, we certainly don't want to limit where murals can be placed on town-owned properties based on the material. Again, brick is a great material to be painted. It can be primed, and again, it has such a longevity. And we're hoping the murals will also have the same longevity.
I mean, currently, by right, there is no ability to put a mural on anything in town.
No.
So that's what this is doing. It isn't
Yeah.
the material, just like with that thing at the old Earth Fair building. I mean, that was something we had to deviate from, but there's no rights to put a mural up currently in the EDO, and that's what this is about.
No, I get that, but I think you could separate it and have some, this is opening up to everything. I mean, this is basically.
Yeah, the council said they wanted to open it to
Anywhere.
everyone, yeah.
You know, you could technically put something up on the side of the library.
Well, if they went through, well, if Wake County, I guess, is the owner of that building, went through the
Yeah.
process, yes, they could, but there's going to be a process from, I mean, I don't think it's gonna be a free-for-all, it doesn't sound like, but I mean, again, that's kind of what my concern was, just, sounds like you've got some things in place as far as oversight, so that would be the biggest concern. I mean, if staff has to review it, I mean, I suppose if there was some crazy situation, it would get debate internally.
Yes.
I have another question. Can you go back one slide, the slide 17?
Yes.
Under murals shall not contain words in any language, should that be a period there?
Well, it's any language, symbols, or representation. So it's in a list, but
You're gonna allow words on the murals?
no. So yes, they can allow. We will allow words, but no words that are or symbols that are or representations that are obscene, offensive, or of a political nature or derogatory.
It seems so open, even the statement that says political nature. Who decides what that is? Because with your cover slide, second picture, was used on a political poster all over the Midwest a couple years ago. So you used a political messaging to say you're not going to make political messages. So who's going to say whether rainbows and this and a variety of other things are political or not? How do we decide that?
Yeah. So again, some of those things are subjective. Again, the cover art that was chosen strictly because we studied certain cities, and that was one that I personally liked. So it was added to the slide. But again, we will be monitoring those things. Again, I'm not saying that it's going to be something that's going to be easy per se, but it was something that is manageable. I think that anything that would be teetering on that line would be something that would fall within what would be prohibited.
But you put it in your slide deck, so that makes me question that wouldn't be prohibited. That's the direction it's heading. So let me suggest this. Maybe instead of making it so open like that, why don't you just choose schemes that are acceptable, like science? So when you talk about the culture, looking for cultural history of Morrisville, are you thinking Civil War, or are you thinking rapid growth of science and the huge international population we have and embracing all of the people from India? That's really open how you make those comments in the RFP, and I want to make sure as we're moving forward with embracing culture, it's not what happened 100 years ago, that we're embracing who lives here today. There was 1% of the people still in this community that was probably here 50 years ago. So maybe if you can explain a little bit more about that portion, that would help as well.
Okay, yeah. So as far as theme goes, those themes will be left up to staff. That was what town council determined. And so I think that we will have some control with what will be installed with that control alone. And so hopefully we will be able to address that and really focus on the here and now and what Morrisville represents at this current time. Again, it's a pilot program, so it will be evolving. I'm not going to pretend that we have all of the answers right now, but we have vetted this, and that we will be, continuing making those adjustments.
Okay.
I think that's with anything pilot, so.
So you had said you had looked at some other municipalities and their programs. So I mean, I guess, yeah, is this language kind of in line with what is being seen? I mean, other people have sort of felt like this adequately covered things.
Yeah, again, we don't reinvent the wheel.
Right.
We look it up. We try to make sure that we're in line with other municipalities and commonly used definitions and making sure that we're, yeah, again, in line.
Okay, I mean, 'cause I did have a quick thought of, the whole Reed v. Gilbert sign thing and how that sort of really screwed up a lot of sign regulations everybody had, and I didn't know, hopefully, again, if this has been tested in other cities, I mean, I feel a little more comfortable about the fact that it would be applicable here or workable here, that would not get us in trouble if it's, something that's tried and true, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
On the language of the definition?
Yeah,
or
this
the
particular
feedback,
definition.
Based on, I mean, the problem is art is subjective, right? So everybody's gonna have a different view of what is, positive, what is neutral, what is negative, all along that spectrum. So, how do we not get in a situation where every single thing that's put forth is gonna be, evaluated by a body and then, put out in front of folks? I'd be interested to see what the reaction is from other communities that have gone through this and, where do they end up? They get letters from people about these things on both sides,
Again, anytime that you're having this, you're going to have that, that debate and that conversation. Again, I think that the definition that we want to stray away from those things that are promotional and advertisement. I think that's going to help limit that. Again, there is no foolproof plan, but it can be a well thought out plan.
I guess I wonder if there's a step before making this amendment to open it up to all places, right? Again, understanding there's going to be restrictions and caveats and reviews, but if there are certain places that you can do it without opening up to every kind of facade, and then have it cut an actual test case. The view is that we're going to have a test case and then it's instantly opened up everywhere. So a little bit of a restriction on it. And then, really around what's funded, because to me, it's like we're going to get ahead of things, but we're doing an RFP for something that's not funded, making changes that'll open up a floodgate of things that potentially could happen.
Yes. I want to, I guess, address the first comment you all had. So initially, staff wanted to limit the installation of murals to town-owned properties as well as Park West Village, Town Center, and the TOD. Council really did want those murals to be allowed, across town. And so that was their proposal. Again, if you all have a recommendation about limiting that, you can certainly make that recommendation.
To Tim's point, I would agree with that. I have concerns about paintings because from our standpoint, we focused on the size of signs, 3 color palettes. So we have a city by design. This city didn't really exist here. And so it was built out of certain considerations of what it should look like. And now we're drastically saying, use whatever colors you want and paint the whole side of the building. When we spent a lot of time deciding what the city should look like. And I guess artwork's one thing, but then scaling it up and putting it on buildings all over town is going to make the city look very different, very different. Some people will like it, some people won't, but it's a huge difference.
Yeah, I guess it's true.
Locations isn't really all over town.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a clamor for
this
that.
is what they're saying, they're opening it up to houses, so.
No, they're not. It's non-residential.
So that they could be approved.
I mean, my understanding is that, the way I read it, it's non-residential, correct?
Yeah, non-residential
Yeah.
zone designations, districts.
I mean, have you had any people other than the Trader Joe's at one point asking for murals in town? I mean,
We have not. Again, I've been with the town 1.5 years, not in my tenure, but I have not heard for other cases other than Trader Joe's.
Just to elaborate a little bit, the initial staff recommendation for Park West, TOD, and Town Center was partly because they're multi-use areas. They're areas that are kind of special, unique. You might want a different character, different level of vitality in those areas. And in a case like Park West, that's owned by a larger shopping center, you have almost an additional control built in because you'll have to go through that management company And they're responsible and concerned, about all of the tenants that are there as well. But we did draft it to open it up to all non-residential areas. That's what it appeared to us council was interested in. Obviously, our recommendation is different. It continues to be different, and we're going to be relaying that to council as we move forward, but ultimately it's their decision. So we drafted it per the prior recommendation and feedback that we got from them.
And I'll be remiss, this is actually a public comment item as well. So I will open up a public comment session. If anybody wants to comment on this particular item, you can. Okay, see if we have no people for comment either. Any other comments or questions or? Certainly we've had a lot of good discussion. I think we're kind of just playing into what the council prefers to do here at this point.
Thank you, Brittany. It was a very good presentation. I like the detail. I didn't mean
Very
to be
detailed,
harsh here. I have
yes.
to ask lots of questions because it's big change. So don't take it personally at all. Thank you.
No. Love to see the questions. Love to see those. And I'm glad that the first, presentation went fairly well here. Yeah, that's all comments and questions for me. Okay. So we are requesting that you all either approve the proposed, your recommendation rather. And so just let me know where you stand.
Do I have a motion from
So
anyone?
I would make a motion to deny the proposed UDO text amendments.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of that?
The wording around mural descriptions.
But I'm just saying, we have a motion and a second before we vote. I just wanted any discussion if anybody had. So your primary concern is just the description of a mural and what may or may not happen.
Correct.
Anything else?
No, in general, I don't think this is a wise use of funds. It's unfunded. It's too broad, overarching. Against.
I'm not against it. And again, if the council has directed things to be in a certain way, I'm loath to kind of second guess, elected officials.
That's why we're here. They're asking for our
No,
opinion.
I understand.
From a standard standpoint, because we're focused on the standards, specifically around the terminology, instead of leaving it so broad that we're not going to be, what we're not going to include, I would rather see that it's nature, it's butterflies, it's sporting events, it's science, if you're going to do a mural, it needs to be general,
I'm not sure that-
acceptable, and that's what I would see. So I came from a big city and we saw big, beautiful murals. What you see for your budget is high school kids bidding on a project to make some money, and they show you a nice little picture that looks great, and by the time they scale it up, it's cheap paint from Walmart, and that's what you get for the amount of money you're looking for. So we all think big, beautiful graphics, what you get for this budget are not professional artists, because you can choose murals online. You can choose them pre-painted. Everybody posts them. They're all over the place. You can scan through thousands of them and go, this is great. Doing an RFP to a group of people that are selected, and with a certain amount of money, you're going to have high school, college kids that probably haven't done it very much. That's why from a standards, why I'm thinking how we phrase what we want is very different.
So I don't know, Michelle, maybe you can advise, are we allowed to dictate items that can be on there? I think it's pretty safe to say, you can't have profane or offensive things, but could we say, here's a list of things you can have? Is that even allowable?
You can provide some examples within the definition. And again, part of the purpose of creating a definition is to differentiate it from a sign. So I know you brought up Reed earlier in that court case, which talks about content neutrality. We are getting into freedom of speech, First Amendment issues, but trying to differentiate in the code what's a sign versus what's a mural by making those two distinct definitions. But we could obviously amend the definition further. The one that Planner Johnson is recommending, I think, was very similar to a couple definitions in other codes that we did find. If I could ask the board as well, I think whenever you're forwarding a recommendation to town council, knowing as much as possible about what's beyond or what's behind that recommendation is helpful to them. So is it kind of the subjectivity in that language? Is it that this is developed to go through a staff review? Would you feel differently if it went through an advisory committee? Just wanting to dig into that a little bit more.
And of course, we're still debating, we haven't voted yet either.
The content of the artwork is a concern as well as the application. So for me, I think of artwork on a piece of paper is one thing, and then it becomes an engineering function. I'm thinking OSHA, the last thing I want to see is somebody in overalls with spray paint. So I don't want to see any spray paint. I want to see MSDS. I want to see a scaffold. I view this as a painting project. So you have an approved piece of artwork, and then after that, this needs to go through the same rigorous control of anybody else is going to paint the side of a, what was the cost of the fitness center? Do you remember?
I can't
I
recall.
mean, we're talking millions of dollars that people spend an enormous amount of time to approve that's absolutely gorgeous. Color is beautiful on it. And so all of a sudden we're sitting here going, we're gonna have somebody for a couple dollars go paint the front of it. I mean, and who are you gonna bid to? Local artists? I don't know any local artists that have that scale of experience to go in and paint a brand new building like that. I mean,
There are
that's just frightening to me.
significant people that have done murals all throughout Raleigh. There's a group of artists that just do murals in Raleigh.
But they make good money doing it, not,
I mean, have you
What was
guys had
the budget?
discussions?
Yeah.
How is this budget compared? Have you had any discussions with anyone?
Yes, so we've been working and reaching out to United Arts and, researching other municipalities. One thing we want to make sure that there are going to be requirements for those artists that are selected from this RFP, that they have prior works at these scales, that they've worked with multiple stakeholders, that they've done projects on time and on budget. Those things are going to be incorporated within the RFP document. So we will not have those sorts of, this is the first time I'm going to try it out here type situation. We definitely want it to be those people that have experience and that are going to produce something that we'll be proud of.
Thank you.
I don't really have the concerns that you have. I don't think it's going to end up in some high school kids' hands. Whatever the designs are, they're going to be vetted by the Parks and Recreation Committee, and by the town
The staff,
council.
at least.
Right.
Yeah, the staff. Right now it's a staff
Right.
review, but.
And by the town council, so anything that's offensive, I think will be vetted out, and I don't think that's a concern. And I like the idea of putting not too many restrictions on the artists, because they're the ones that have the vision,
Right.
and they've done it before, they know what looks good on, the side of a wall, the side of 3 walls. So, I'm in favor of, I would approve it. I'm willing to approve it with some changes to the language. Maybe some broad guidelines behind the artists, but not to kind of inhibit them from using their imagination and their vision and their experience.
I'm sorry, could you go back to the slide that says what's going to be in the RFP? Maybe that would be.
And if I could clarify while Planner Johnson is doing that, the 3 pilot murals that are on town-owned properties, those would go through an RFP process. Beyond that, the way the code is written, a private property owner wanting to do a mural would go through just a staff review.
And I also wanted to clarify as well that these are currently identified goals and objectives. However, the RFP is still being drafted. So, the feedback that we're receiving here will certainly go into the incorporation of that document. So it's great feedback.
So as to the motion we have now, which is to flatly turn this down. I mean, I agree with Ken. I don't have the concerns. I'm sure that it can be worked out that we will not have high school kids doing a mural. And I agree that wouldn't necessarily look good. So, I mean, I don't see any real problem with what we've got here. I feel like if other towns have used similar language and it's been working for them, it's been tested without issue, that helps me.
Have you ever driven by a mural that was in disarray?
It's awful.
Right,
It's
They're
all
all over the
everywhere,
place.
but you know
And
what?
that's the thing. So I've driven by murals that I don't like, don't find appealing. I've driven by murals that were in disarray. I've driven by murals that have graffiti all over them.
Right,
You
so
know,
we've got
so
plans
the-
to address
But I
that.
look at it, it's points to address them, but even in it, it's saying these things last for 12 years and we're looking at it for maintenance for 3 to 5. So right out of the gate, there's a mismatch of how that works. So I think that it's kind of a silly thing to go after. The benefit of doing this is outweighed by the potential risk. We're not look, I agree with Kenneth that we're not probably going to get to an offensive thing where somebody finds it offensive, trust the gatekeepers in that. But I'm not looking just to not offend people. It's about, does everybody find this as a community to be a positive thing? And I don't think you get to that. I mean, in just corporate, you got to get people to work through agreeing on 3 words in a vision statement, and it takes a year to get people to align on 3 words. Now we're going to do something that's super subjective related to art. It's tough to do.
But if you're saying these same companies that spend a year arguing over 3 words are going to put offensive murals we won't like, that is opposite. I mean,
But it's set up right now is that we're saying you can kind of just do it with the
I
staff.
don't think there's
And
too
nobody's
many-
an art expert.
there's not too many businesses in this area. Like one, the town council and everybody's going to approve the first 3, right? That's going to go through much more process. I don't think we have a lot of business owners in town that are going to be doing some crazy murals and then letting them decay on the side of their building because that looks bad for them. That's more bad for them than even if it was the town's property. I don't feel like, I think this is almost something that's going to take care of itself here.
It comes down to money, the same thing that Tim. So I lived in Chicago. Believe me, I've seen an awful lot of really bad murals. There've been a couple beautiful ones that make the magazines, but when you drive around town, it's the people who bid on it might have something nice that they do on a little poster. And somehow between that point and the amount of money that they're given, what they actually spend on the paint to put it on the wall, and then they have this plan that they're going to paint it all by themselves, and they can't. Then they bring in people who aren't painters, and for me, it's painting something. It took them almost 2 months to paint my condo with a whole team full of guys. And all of a sudden, 1 or 2 people think they're going to go out and paint, and then they bring in friends, and I tell you, so fast, it looks nothing like the piece of paper. Then you go through all of these legal steps. They have no money to repair it. The city has no money to repair it, and then they're trying to sandblast it off the wall because it just went down there. And believe me, it's not 1 or 2, it's all over the place. So every single viaduct in Chicago, every single wall, somebody has already attempted to paint. Some of them are great. The majority of them were really bad failures. So I'm just overly conservative over, how do we open this up, but yet at the same time get people who really paint the beautiful things that you see on the websites and not some local people that just come in for $8,000 and you can't even buy regular paint. You can't go to Sherwin-Williams and paint a building for that. So where are they getting these colors and painting for that amount of money?
So, I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, it sounds like pretty much everyone has their positions. I'm not sure if anyone is, at some point we should vote on this motion, which is to turn this down.
I don't think we have enough content for standards. It's just, saying you can
Any
paint
other-
whatever you want and
No, the motion I put forth is kind of what I still have.
All right, so the motion before us is to deny this.
Yes.
Flatly. So I guess all in favor of the motion, a yes vote is to deny this. So we have Chris and Ken and Tim, all against. So we have myself and Ken. So we're deadlocked at 2-2 to deny the motion.
So you did it almost the reverse way.
We did
it
initially,
normally
yes.
occurs. So
Right, so but again,
a tied motion is actually a motion to deny because you
Correct.
don't have a majority.
Yes.
So your motion to deny
did not carry.
is denied.
So then the question is there any other?
I don't know if you want to make it the other way around.
Well, I
because
was
do
going to
think
come
that's
back
the
to-
intent of the
Yeah.
board.
So I guess the question is, I mean, can we add anything constructive and make another motion? Would that be of any use, or I guess we've talked enough about this. I mean, is there another motion that we can make that we might be able to
I
pass?
guess the question is, maybe this is a mid-ground, is there any way that you do a one-time exception for one property? Right, and say, pick one of your three and make an exception for that. Is that even a possibility that you do that and say, okay, you're gonna go out for an RFP that is funded for that particular and give it, and that's a pilot? Can you even do that?
I mean, just because we don't have money now doesn't mean that money's not coming. I agree. It's much smarter to have the framework in place. And if it never gets funded, then it never happens. It hasn't hurt anything except for the time we spent the
Well,
money.
no, but it moralizes what you could do in the future. That's the problem. So,
Okay.
It,
All I'm saying is, though, again, if it doesn't happen, that won't happen. And again, we don't seem to have a clamor for murals in town, so.
so then we shouldn't do
Could I
it.
help
Sure.
maybe clarify one point while my voice is loud? What the board tonight is really looking at is the RFP is going to be for town-owned properties. That's almost separate. It's almost a different thing. Tonight, the UDO amendments would allow that RFP to go through and actually have things painted on buildings. So the UDO amendments tonight are more about, does the town prefer to allow paintings and other things like that on brick, stone, and whatever the other amendment was? Could you go back to that page, Brittany? Thank you. And so what I think, what we request from the board tonight is painting anywhere, everywhere that has brick, stone, or rock within those zoning districts that allow it, is that preferred or not? Ultimately, I've heard concerns with painting on the brick with those materials. Is it something the board would rather say, no, you have to install something under that, you can't just paint directly on the brick? That's another option. Or is the board saying, we don't want to see these murals at all? That's really what we don't prefer. The other option is, I'll kind of explain kind of how we got to this. It started with some of the allowing murals in areas such as the town center that's being designed, such as the transit district and some of the smaller areas. And then as Brittany coordinated her team of staff members and went to various boards and town council, it expanded to, well, town-owned properties would be a good place to also have murals. Then at the town council meeting, when we were kind of discussing what would council like to see with an RFP, it was expanded to, well, in fact, we might want to see it everywhere. So can staff do that? So we've been kind of building on these layers. So something else that staff might recommend is if the board's not comfortable with the language, with the scope of what was presented tonight, and there's things that you really would prefer to change, such as, I think I heard earlier, political, the mural can't be political in nature. That could be something we can take a step back, delay, research some more, provide different language or different alternatives at the next meeting, if that's something the board would prefer.
Can we possibly, approve it subject to review of the RFP?
So the RFP process itself is going to be a town-controlled process. So there probably is some room there to run it, the RFP itself, through this board. The other part is allowing any private property owner or any other owner of a building to be allowed to paint murals directly on their buildings. That's the part that tonight, the way the amendments are set up, it would be an administrative staff review. As long as they meet the spacing and the size requirements for those murals, they could apply for a permit and paint it directly on the building. So at that point, these would not be, you could not approve these amendments subject to, so it doesn't necessarily work like that. Yeah, that's, yeah.
And I stick with my original, a house that has 100% of their wall painted based on
Doesn't
this
apply to
sample.
houses, so that's not, that shouldn't be the concern.
Sounds like what you just said, that would be included.
So Brittany, could you go one page to that zoning district principal use table or accessory or two? Yeah, there's you right there.
Can you try and zoom in on it too?
Yeah.
So it was decided to add this as an accessory use. So your principal uses, accessory uses, and temporary uses. This is an accessory use, and if you'll notice, the zoning districts that end in DR, so those are low density, very low density, medium density, or high density, and then some of the other Rs were all eliminated. So there are some areas such as the BAC, CAC, RAC that has residential style buildings, mostly multifamily. Those are still allowed. Again, if that's language you prefer to have firmer, hard language that says it's only allowed on certain types of buildings, or prevented on certain types of buildings, that's something else we could tweak and either come back or you make a motion tonight to include in future language. But the way it's set up now is it's in the districts that are primarily not your traditional suburban subdivision.
And if the board is concerned about, the extent to which it's proposed to be allowed, you could view this as more of a pilot, restrict it to a lesser number of districts, or at least recommend that to town council, that to start off with, while we're gaining experience, you want to limit it, and as we learn more, get more experience, then potentially expand it to other areas. That's an option as well. Or there are some communities where, again, we're talking about the town-owned properties. There will be an RFP process. They'll be reviewed by the Parks Rec Cultural Advisory Committee. They'll be reviewed by town council. On those private properties that aren't a part of that RFP process, would you rather see this go through an advisory board and not just be a staff review? So there is that additional layer, because regardless of how we would rewrite a definition, I don't think it's possible to completely remove the subjectivity out of it.
Are we getting asked at all on private property for this?
What's that?
Are we getting asked for this at all on private property?
She said no.
No. So, I mean,
ParkWest is the only, I think the only developer that we've heard from that's interested to date.
It's the only formal request we've had. We've had other odds and ends of, is this allowed, is it not allowed? But nothing serious as Park West with that application a few years ago.
I mean, we can recommend with alterations. I mean, is there some thought that we would recommend, as he said, for the private properties, that instead of just being a staff review, that would go through one of our committees? I mean, is there any support for that?
I haven't, no, I mean, I don't see this as.
Nobody's ever going to agree. And I come right back to the cover page again, using a political poster on the cover of this presentation, and then coming out and saying that we're not going to have anything political in nature. So that's really up to interpretation, and you admitted you picked it because it was one. So I'm left thinking, well, I don't think that should go on the swimming pool. So that's my opinion. It's different. So that to me then becomes political, and I don't have any say in that, because we're going to have a collection of people who feel certain types of artwork are acceptable and they can paint it on any type of building. I would never paint on brick. I mean, cement, brick, I mean, those are long-lasting materials. So it's just a large change. I wouldn't use words. So back to the standards, I wouldn't approve words.
What if someone wants to say Morrisville? That's a
You
word.
can make an exception for Morrisville, but you know where you are. So, it's like the types of things where you see the problems come around the words, and it always comes around the political statements. And so some communities just say anything that's nature, they pick a theme, they pick colors. This is very, very broad. We have elections coming up. I mean, there's just this could just turn into one big nightmare. And then to do it on brand new building. If it was just restrooms and the fire station, some of these older buildings, but to pick a brand new expensive piece of construction and then say, we're going to test on this beautiful building, it's just counterintuitive to me. So from standards, I know our role here is to discuss the standards. It would be a lot of rewording to make them smaller, make them more generic in nature, and a lot of wording around how they're going to be maintained and who makes the selection process. So it comes back to, I just don't think there's enough work here to start moving into big murals.
So then do we have a motion to approve, and we can vote to not approve that? Because the planning director is correct. I mean, we have not approved a motion to not approve this, so.
I mean, and we could send that forward in the minutes. I think it's
I mean,
clear to
I mean,
town
if you feel
council
like
that
that's-
you're split 2-2, but technically the motion to
Did not carry.
deny did not carry.
That doesn't mean it was approved.
Right, it was not approved. We didn't take any action to approve.
Isn't it not true?
Yeah, I mean. So, I mean, if you feel like we've provided adequate and done our jobs enough, I mean, certainly we've brought up a lot of details that, you know,
And I think there's a good
Could be useful.
discussion that's been had that will be reflected in the minutes that will help the town council understand what the different concerns and issues were or are.
Unfortunate that we had so few people here. Is there any way that we can
well,
kind of look at it again?
If you
was gonna
would
ask.
like this to come back at the next
when is the
meeting,
council action on this supposed to be?
It's tentatively scheduled for them for next month, but that's tentative. It's always pending review by this body. If the planning and zoning board feels that you'd like staff to review the language, come back with some amendments, or just have another discussion when more members are present, we could bring this back to you in May.
Do we have a motion to
Table?
until the next meeting with some revisions?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table the vote, is that what, table the vote until such time as there's more members at the meeting and the staff has had an opportunity to review the comments made tonight and take those into consideration in the wording of the RFP. Anything else am I missing?
I think that opens it to multiple things. Do we have a second for that? I mean, I'll second it then. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of tabling this until next meeting with additional information? Aye. Opposed? Okay. So I guess we,
The notes?
excuse me?
I guess they could review the comments and from there.
Well, sure, the council can, yeah, they're the ultimate decision-making body in the town. They can
Yeah.
take what we've said and do that. I just, you know, we have the opportunity, but I guess we don't have the opportunity now, so. This will go to the council and they can do as they see fit. Thank you. So speaking of the next meeting, under new business, and I'll let the planning director inform us, but we need to change the May meeting date.
Thank you, Chairman Langston. Each of you should have received an email earlier today. Unfortunately, we do have a conflict with the regularly scheduled May 11th meeting. So we do need to change that meeting to another day. Right now, we are anticipating that a rezoning will be on that agenda. The two alternate days that we're looking at are May 4th and May 16th. I did hear back from Josh and Sanjay, who are not here tonight. Josh can make both the meetings on the 16th and the 4th. Sanjay can make the 16th, he cannot make May 4th. But in order to change that meeting date, we will need a formal motion to amend your 2023 calendar to change that meeting from May 11th to whatever date you would choose. And we were thinking that the meeting would begin at 6:30 as is customary.
I'm
Just for
available
discussion,
the
yeah.
16th, but not the 4th.
Same.
So it's 2, 3.
I can make those.
I could make either date. So, yeah. So it sounds like we have the 16th would be preferable. Do we have a motion to amend the calendar for
Sure.
2023 to May 16th?
make a motion to amend the calendar, moving the May 11th meeting to the May 16th date.
Second.
All right, motion second. All in favor? Aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now on to the newsletter and staff comments.
I'm gonna bring it up on my computer because I have a hard time reading up there, so give me just a minute. So we did not have a meeting last month, so this newsletter is both for February and March. There were no new site plan or development combo applications submitted between those 2 months. However, we did approve one site plan application that was for the Radisson Hotel, which is a 132-room hotel located along Slater Road. Town Council did also approve the Duke Energy rezoning request. I'm sure board members recall that application that was before you not too long ago. It did go through a number of town council meetings. A few additional conditions got added, including some additional landscaping that was required to help screen the substation expansion a little bit more from the neighbors. But that request did get approved. And then in other news, Town Council had a work session on March 28th to review and provide feedback on the TOD development and zoning plan that previously was discussed by this board. And affordable housing was brought back to the Town Council as well for additional discussion. They have directed staff to move forward on a public employee housing choice program that would provide down payment assistance to public employees. So we are investigating that program a little bit more and working with the consultant to start to develop a framework for that. After discussing UDO incentives, ultimately, the only incentive that was left that there seemed to be an appetite for was the height bonus. And based on what we were hearing from our consultant HRNA, that alone would not be enough to really incentivize affordable housing. So ultimately, we're not going to be bringing forward any UDO amendments with incentives for affordable housing. However, we are working on a kind of a policy toolkit that would be more of something that staff could utilize when we are working on conditional rezonings with applicants. It might signal to the development community that there's an interest in affordable housing as well. So that is the direction that is headed in right now. Does the board have any questions?
Thank you. Any board comments, Tim?
No.
No.
Ken?
No.
Chris? No. Thanks for the presentation. And that's it. I guess I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Your motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
You think you're gonna just like they get the most important.
Oh, yeah, right.
I couldn't open it when I was trying to look at it at home. So I said,
No,
oh,
it didn't.
you know, seven.
It opened once and then it didn't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was able to.
Yes.
Knock out. We always find
It
stuff
is
that
counting
trouble
trouble
about
about
it.
The town maintains it and owns it according to this document I found.
Have a great weekend. We're almost there, guys. We're almost there. Yeah, heck yeah, I'm ready. What? You lucky dog.